welcome everyone. It is 27th of July. Beautiful weather this week. Apparently we're up for some more warm weather coming our way, and just in time this evening we're going to be talking about hot weather and precautions to take for your own health and safety. And we've got some guest speakers. We will also be talking, talking about some alternatives for power in case our power goes out at some point during the summer, or we need additional power. We're going to learn about what technologies are out there, how to make good selections, and what they're for. So I think we're going to be learning a lot of good details this evening to help us be more prepared in the future. So with that, let's start first. Let me ask Liz, do you have any report that is on CERT?
We're still looking for actors to support the event this weekend for the Aries training. We're helping train. I'm going to let Dan describe, or Dan or Joe Marie describe the activity. But what we will do is be actors with scenarios that are given to us that then inform us about how we're going to add reality to their experience as radio operators. For us, that will be fun. For them, it may be a little off-putting, but it's reality. So we're helping to train them to be better at providing support for the public safety power shutoff activities. Those power outages you were just talking about. So Dan or Joe Marie, you want to talk about the Aries end?
Yeah, the idea is for members of Aries, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, to practice setting up and staffing a station which would allow the public to report emergencies should there be no other way. So during a power outage, extended power outage, where the cell phone towers may quit from batteries going dead or generators running out of gas, we'll provide an alternative to driving all the way to the fire department or something. And because a lot of us are not used to having the public come up and interact with us and reporting their emergencies, we're doing some role playing where people come up and tell us that their son is in the car and he's not breathing well, and so we have to write this down accurately on a form and then repeat that information accurately to the station, who will then be transferring it onto net control to do a page out to fire department.
So
Okay. Right. Joe Marie or Liz, did you have any more you wanted to add to that? Okay. Very good. All right. I see
I'm
a hand,
sorry.
Diana Sue.
I just have a question for Dan, because these people that are going to be the ham operators are used to receiving information via their technology rather than a person coming up and confronting them. Is that the big difference? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have unfamiliar forms to fill out, unfamiliar scenarios in unfamiliar places. So
okay.
Triple threat. And this is also, what happens if 2 people, 3 people come in at the same time? What do you do then? So
triage.
Exactly.
That's the word. That's the word.
Okay, which one of you is dying now?
Sorry, the cat in the tree is not more important than the
Well, you
the
haven't
car
met my cat.
accident. Yeah, well,
But my dog is my life.
yeah.
Well, if my
Tammy,
cat were stuck in a tree, it would be more important to me than that car crash down the road, but that's just me.
Exactly.
I actually do have something cert related I'd like to announce, Tammy. And that
Sure.
is that the next call out that we will have on August 7th, we will be discussing new policies and procedures and changes that have gone into effect at the county level. So I'll be introducing that topic and we'll be discussing that and bringing ourselves up to date on things. So that's
Very
it.
good.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to go into this evening's topic. So let's just introduce both of our guests this evening. We have Joyce Smith. Yay, welcome, Joyce, who is a Santa Cruz County CERT instructor, also a retired educator. And what she's going to help us understand is some of the basics of heat precautions, throw in a little bit of spice from her training with wilderness first aid training and other personal experiences that she's had serving the public. And it'll help ground us with the basics of understanding what to look out for this summer with hot weather. And as Micaiah had mentioned, maybe as soon as next week. And we also have with us David Dean, who is a Live Oak CERT branch co-leader, a ham radio enthusiast, and in particular, a kind of expert on portable power and a variety of solutions for the problems that we might face. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot more this evening about what alternates we can put into place in case the power goes out in high temperature situations in particular. So
Hello,
thanks and
everyone.
welcome. All right, let's start. Joyce, if you don't mind, let's start with you.
Sure. And I'm
let's
going to share my
know.
screen. So
Great.
here we
Okay.
go.
Thanks.
And go away, little things. Slideshow. Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about how we can stay cool in what is obviously a warming world. And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to change anytime quickly. So for myself, yes, I am a CERT instructor, and I actually originally took CERT in about the year 2000 down in Watsonville. But I also love the parks, and so I've been involved visiting the parks, using the parks, and then for a number of years I was a volunteer at Pinnacles National Park. And I'd put on my nice little uniform, and at Pinnacles, it obviously gets warm, even in the spring. I don't go there in the summer, but the most common reasons they have to have emergency evacuations in that park, unlike the Garden of Eden in Henry Cowell, is dehydration and heat exhaustion. And so there was, usually when we would have something happen, a medical emergency, the people who would respond were our law enforcement rangers, who are also all paramedics, the local CAL FIRE people, our Condor crew, who was all trained in search and rescue, and they knew how to rappel down a cliff if they had to get somebody. And I was usually at the bottom of the trail with my radio, waiting to let them know when CAL FIRE arrived and update CAL FIRE on what was going on. And one time I was out on the trail and I ran into a older couple, and the man wasn't doing terribly well. And so I was talking to our law enforcement rangers and trying to find out whether or not they should come to him or if I should walk him out. And I realized that I didn't know how to answer the questions. I really didn't know what his symptoms were telling me about. And so because of that, and because of the fact that I felt I needed to know that working at Pinnacles, and also if and when the big earthquake hits or whatever our disaster is, our urban area or our mountain area and our valley area all becomes wilderness. I took the wilderness first responder class, which is a 90-hour class. And So that's what I'm going to be using to talk to you a little bit about tonight. So first of all, I just want to review the heat illnesses that we're talking about. And the first one is one we don't really think of very often. It's not one we mention in CERT, and that's heat syncope. And if you think of all those soldiers lined up at West Point for hours and hours and hours, and all of a sudden one goes bloop and faints, that's heat syncope. And ahead of time, they may have had tunnel vision, they may start sweating, they may feel weak, and then they just faint. So how it's treated is let them lie there until they come to, which usually doesn't take long, and make sure they're hydrated. Now, when it comes to prevention of heat syncope, do not wear a heavy uniform in front of Buckingham Palace with a big beaver hat, because this is probably when we most often hear about this is over in England with these poor soldiers. Okay, so ones that are more important for us to think about: heat cramps. How many of you have ever had heat cramps? And I can't see all of you, but we'll see if I can see all of you. It looks like most of you have. For me, it always, yeah. For me, it was usually in my abdomen. It usually comes from exercising, and a muscle will suddenly just tighten up and hurt like hell. They do not know why people get heat cramps yet. They think it may be a lack of salt. I've also read that it may actually be genetic, that whatever causes it has been passed down to you. So who knows? Oops, enter. Okay, there we go. So this is something you've probably seen at sporting events. If you've watched an NBA game or an NFL game, or if you've been watching the Olympics lately, you've probably seen somebody in this position. Get them out of the heat if you can, get them in the shade, elevate their legs, have them just lie there flat, do a little hydration, and do not massage it. Massage can make the cramps worse. Instead, it's a very, very gentle stretching of the limbs. Okay. Now, the more serious ones are heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And these we do talk about in CERT. There's a few little differences in what we say as wilderness first responders from what we're taught in CERT. But many of the things happen the same. And the definition: heat exhaustion, your body is exhausted from dealing with the heat, from trying to keep yourself cooled down. And heat stroke, your body actually is starting to shut down. Heat stroke can lead to death. Heat exhaustion can be uncomfortable, and if it's not treated, can move into heat stroke. In both cases, your heart is going to be racing faster, you are going to be breathing faster, your skin's going to be different. If you are dealing with heat exhaustion, you've been out there, you've hiked too far, and you probably didn't have enough water, your skin is going to be pale, as it is with heat stroke, but your skin is going to be cool because you're probably still sweating. And when you sweat, the reason our body sweats is so that that moisture can evaporate from our skin and cool us down. If you have moved to heat stroke, your body no longer can do that. Whether or not it's because there's no water left to evaporate, to sweat, but your body basically is saying, okay, I need to keep my heart going and I need to keep my lungs going. And I'm going to shut everything else down. I'm going to stop sending lots of little blood out to my limbs. I'm going to stop sending blood to my head. I'm going to keep the heart going and the lungs going. And your body then is going to start warming. So your skin is going to be warm, like when we have a kid and we check to see if they have a fever, their skin is warm. The same thing is happening with heat stroke. They cannot cool themselves down any longer. Mental state is a big, big clue. If you're dealing with heat exhaustion, you still know what's going on. You still can answer questions. You know what's happening, who you are, where you are. If you are dealing with heat stroke, that's not necessarily the case. You are confused. You may not be able to answer questions. There was a woman who died in the Grand Canyon in June, and they believe she became confused. She got off trail and got lost, and she was found dead the next day from heat illness, most probably heat stroke. Your temperature, if you have heat exhaustion, a little bit raised or normal. Heat stroke, very hot. You know, the same way as if you had a child and their fever's over 104, you're going to get them to the doctor. The same thing with heat stroke. Your body can't cool itself down, and it's unhealthy heat. Okay. For me, heat exhaustion, the first clue for me is usually I have the headache. For other people, you know, your body's tired because it's working too hard to cool yourself down. You're thinking, man, I'm just exhausted here. So you know, it's heat exhaustion. You need to treat it before it goes further. All right, so heat exhaustion, get them out of the sun, get them into shade, get them into an air-conditioned place, lie down, hydrate. Okay, those are the biggies. Heat stroke is far more serious. If you're out on the trail and someone you believe is dealing with heat stroke, you need to cool them as fast as you can. If you have a bottle of water, you need to get their clothes wet, you need to get them wet, you need to take anything you have and fan them and try to get their temperature down and call 911 immediately. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. Quick, you know, overview of what those things are. Now, obviously, we don't want to have to treat these things. We would much rather prevent them, right? Prevention is always best. As certs, we all know it's safety first. And that's the same with the heat. We need to just make sure nothing happens. So, this is a picture at Pinnacles. And this was this year. You can see they're masked. This was on the west side in the Chaparral parking lot. And somebody got themselves up in the high peaks when they shouldn't have, ended up having heat illness. Most probably, I don't know the whole story of this event, but law enforcement rangers and other members of their search and rescue team would have gone out there along with CAL FIRE. They got to the person to a place where they could put them into the gurney and be lifted up by the helicopter to take them down from the peaks. They also have gurneys that are one-wheeled and you actually take them down the trails, which is one heck of a thing. And then the ambulance came up, met the helicopter, and this person was being transferred to the ambulance to be taken out of the park. Okay? We don't want it to get to this point. So all of the parks, if you go look at the Facebook page of any of the Western parks at this point, they are saying, do not hike after 10 in the morning or before 4. Between 10 and 4, don't go on the trail, period. And if you are going on the trail, you need to be prepared. I told you about the person in Grand Canyon who died in June. A week later, another person died, a 55-year-old man. One of the things they tell you is never try to hike to the bottom of the canyon and back in one day. It can't be done. He decided to try it and died coming up. So let's do it right. Okay? First of all, check the weather forecast. You know, Mikhail was saying the heat's coming back. So she's already been looking at the weather forecast. She's keeping herself prepared. If you have things to do in your yard, you know, if you have the animals to take care of, or if you're going to be gardening, I like to go out and garden before I even eat breakfast. You go out at 6 in the morning, pull the weeds then come inside, okay? And let's deal with the skin cancer too. Throw on your sunscreen. Make sure your hat is shaded, your head is shaded, the back of your neck is shaded, because otherwise the heat from the sun is actually warming your body up from the top. So try to decrease that by keeping it covered up. Clothing should be light colored. Clothing should be loose. This is not the day to wear your black t-shirts if you're out in the heat. Okay. All right. Lots of fluids. Keep hydrated. If you're out hiking, if you're out really working, if you're out working in your garden, they say 1 liter of water per hour. There's a reason that backpacks now have camel sack bags in them, you know, so that you can keep that water. That's a lot of water. And if you can't carry that much water, don't hike any longer than the water you can carry. Salt. Have your snacks, have your salt. This is a place where we can cheat a little bit and have those potato chips or trail bars that have salt in them, or whatever those things that they normally say, don't have too much salt. Make sure you have enough if you're going to be sweating, because you'll sweat the salt away. If it's over 90 degrees or the humidity is over 70 degrees, then your body starts losing the ability to manage the heat. So you really have to focus. Okay? When I grew up in New Hampshire and I worked in the theater back in the good old days, and we would have a non-air conditioned second floor dance studio. And New England in July is really, really humid. And I would just watch the water pouring off these dancers. Luckily, I wasn't a dancer. I just got to watch them do it. But you need to be careful. Now, when I would take the kids out hiking in Pinnacles, we had a little chant. And I would talk to them about the fact that if they've had enough water, then when they pee, and fifth graders think this is really pretty funny, if you pee and you've got enough water, you've been drinking enough water, then that pee is going to be light colored. So the chant was, I would say hydrate, and they'd chant back pee clear. And we do that chant 3 times, and then everybody would drink. So just remember that, hydrate, pee clear. Okay? So if you see your urine getting darker, that means you're not hydrating, okay? You need to take care of that. If you're finding yourself getting dizzy, if you're getting that nasty headache, you're getting tired, these are signs of heat exhaustion, and you need to stop it where it is. Don't let it go further. All right, that's outside. Now let's talk about inside. Raise your hand if you do have air conditioning in your house. Jo Marie does. Anybody else?
Okay, we're all going over to Jo Marie's house.
Oh, Bill has air conditioning. Okay,
And
Bill and
Bill.
Jo Marie, we're gonna go visit you guys. All right. Most of us don't. It's not something that in the past we've needed. And I was looking it up today. We do not have cooling centers in Santa Cruz County. So that last heat spell we had, Jason Hobbin at the county said no. You know, because of the marine influence, we don't have heating centers here. Yes, San Jose does. Yes, Gilroy does. We don't here. So keep that in mind. You know, this is somebody down in Phoenix. Okay. And Arizona this year in Maricopa County has already had 73 people die of heat-related illnesses. The heat spell that hit Oregon and Washington this year killed almost 200 people. So people would be sitting in their apartment like this woman who's doing some things very wisely. She's not wearing a lot of clothes. Her feet are bare. She's got water next to her and what looks like a Coke or something. Coke's not as good as the water. She's got something to do. She's got to keep herself busy knitting. And she's hoping this fan's going to do the job for her. It's not necessarily going to. And you see the curtains, those Venetian blinds, there's a lot of sun still coming through there. So this place is going to heat up. All right. Fans do not cool the air. All they do is move it around. Fans feel really, really nice, but they can give us a false sense of security. So it's really important to remember that. Okay? Overnight, in the morning, when the air is cool, open all the windows. Let that cool air in. But then as soon as it starts warming up, or even before it does, drop those windows, drop those curtains, and keep that cool air inside. Now, I have some windows. Our bathroom window, it's got that little mottled glass, but it doesn't have curtains. And it gets the hot sun coming in the morning without anything stopping it. So I actually take white paper and I tape it up in the windows to reflect that heat back out. You need to keep as much of it out as possible. Some people say if you have a freezer, I don't, but if you take water bottles and freeze them up and put them in front of the fan, then the fan will move past that cold and that will cool down the air, which can cool down your body. All right, get somewhere cool. So where are some of these places? Well, as we know at Henry Cowell, the San Lorenzo River is a great place to go and stick your feet in, although I do not recommend the Garden of Eden. Bill will probably know why I'm telling you that. But you know, if a friend has a pool, hey, can I come over and hang out in your pool for a while, get your feet wet, or go down to the coast. Obviously, on the weekends, that's kind of miserable because everybody from San Jose is doing the same thing. Okay. Time out your errands. Great time to go grocery shopping in an air-conditioned grocery store is in the heat of the day. Yeah. Don't go grocery shopping at 8 in the morning. Go grocery shopping at 2 in the afternoon so that you can cool down. I know it's a little further for you guys to drive, but the mall is a nice place to get exercise. You want to take a walk, it's too hot, it's 104 degrees out, you really have to stretch your legs. Go to the mall. It has nice, big, long hallways, and it's big and it's cool. Movie theaters. This is a weird one to be recommending at the moment with Delta. But they're, the Scotts Valley Cinema is so nice. But I would not go in there without a mask at the moment. But it's a good place to cool off. Public libraries. Bill's house. Joe Marie's house. Anybody have other ideas where you can go or things you do to cool yourself down on a hot day?
I have a little kiddie pool that I put my feet in.
Uh-huh. Nice, nice. And I must admit, one thing that, I used to love to do, and I hate thinking about it during our drought going on at the same time, is, putting on a sprinkler in the backyard and running through the sprinkler. Or I will put a wet bandana on the back of my neck, and as that water evaporates, or if I'm out hiking, I'll just pour water right over my head, cool myself off, get myself wet.
One thing that I would suggest and would like to run by you, Joyce, as someone who knows more about this than I do. For example, during the heat wave they had in the Pacific Northwest, I was suggesting that people who were particularly heat sensitive, when it didn't even cool down during the night.
Uh-huh.
It's like if you don't have air conditioning, wrap a wet sheet around yourself before going to bed. You may still get a few hours sleep because it's going to take that water some time to evaporate, and that evaporation will take some of that overwhelming heat with it.
Nice.
What's your opinion on that?
No, it'll evaporate. Definitely. I remember as a kid in New Hampshire, we'd have wet washcloths. My parents would come in and put wet washcloths on our forehead on those hot, humid nights. But yeah, remember, if the temperature's over 95, getting up to be 100 and obviously over 100, your body cannot keep it at 98.6 or 97.4, whatever your normal temperature is. Your body will start warming up. And so that's when you need to think about it. You may want to give yourself a stay vacation. Get a hotel room. Get a hotel room, make sure it's air conditioned. But treat yourself, because in the long run, it's going to be safer and healthier. Other suggestions from people?
Ice cream.
Ooh, I like that, Liz. Yeah.
Well, it may be short term, but it'll be a break.
Mhm.
And usually those places have AC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Other suggestions people have, what you do to stay cool on a nasty hot day. Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
Go run through the sprinklers.
Yeah, definitely. Sprinklers are great. And even, when you're talking about, when you were talking about your kiddie pool, just keeping your feet cool. And there are rooms in your house that will stay cooler. Our bathrooms often will stay cooler because of the tile floors. That material itself will stay cooler. Or if you're going to go out and buy a window AC, put it in one room that you can close off and stay comfortable in. Another emergency cooling shelter we have is our camper. I have a truck camper in the driveway, and as long as there's power, I can plug it in and run the AC, or I can run the generator and run the AC. But I can have my little truck camper as my own little cooling shelter.
I sometimes carry a spritzer bottle with me, so that you can cool yourself off as often as you want to.
Yeah.
And you can put a little drop of lavender oil or something in there and kind of help the mood and cool yourself off at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one, Diana. Yeah, I had forgotten to write that one down. We actually had spritzer bottles at Pinnacles, in the nature center and in the visitor center, so that if somebody came in and obviously was dealing with heat, we could spritz them down, because then again, it's the same as sweating. It's going to be the moisture on the body, and as that moisture evaporates, it'll take the heat out of your body. So that's a really good one. All right. Any others?
I have heavy drapes and it keeps the place pretty cool.
Good.
It
Yeah.
makes a big difference having it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there are parts of the country where they actually have outside shutters, that go on the outside so that the heat doesn't even get as far as the window. And you close those shutters down to keep the heat off. Another thing is, a lot of the world, what do they do in the middle of the afternoon? They take a siesta. That's not the time of day to be out doing the hard work. That's a time to sort of hunker down on those hot days.
And this isn't a way to keep cool, but it's a way to at least stay aware of what kind of problems you might be in. A lot of people will go drink some beer or, drink alcohol of some sort, and then you're not thinking right. So you do stupid stuff.
Right. Also, alcohol is not going to keep your body cool. That's the wrong kind of liquid. Things also caffeine. You pee it out. So Archie Bunker way back in the days said you don't buy a beer, you only borrow it. So that's not going to be the kind of moisture that's going to be good. That's going to cool your body down. Alcohol does not work. So, yeah, good point.
So when is the best part of the year to go camping at Pinnacles?
I love it in October, November. We spend Thanksgiving there every year, or the day after Thanksgiving. We take our leftovers, and then we take potato chips instead of mashed potatoes, and we take carrot sticks instead of squash, and we take a hike with our leftovers. And then I love it in the early spring. Unfortunately, so does everybody else because the wildflowers are there. So I suggest go Monday through Thursday, and it's a beautiful place. But no, the summer. No, the hottest day I was there was Labor Day one year, was 112.
Yeah.
And I had a sign outside the nature center and said, "Come in, we have air conditioning." And I stayed in there.
By the way, one time we drove through Death Valley, and it was about, I'm not sure, 108, I think is my recollection. And I was surprised how well the car did with air conditioning and not overheating.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if people had to just sit in their car with the engine running, it's very likely the car would be able to handle that.
Yeah, and actually, my car's a Leaf. It's electric, so I drain the battery when I use the air conditioner. But if I had it plugged into the house, so that it's automatically doing it, then yes, my car is another little air conditioned spot. And so yeah, absolutely, it's a great time to go take a ride in the middle of the hot afternoon with the car's air conditioner. On the other side. When we're using air conditioners, in most cases, we're also using, petroleum products. If we still use gas, or if our house, is on the regular PG&E grid, some of it's natural gas and so forth and so on. And the more we're using that, the more we're contributing to the climate change that we're dealing with. So it's, it's this vicious cycle. If you can figure out ways to stay cool without using those petroleum products, and if we can all figure that out, it's a tough balancing act. So, all right, on that happy note. All right, lovely final quote. Wisdom is knowing when to have rest, when to have activity, and how much of each to have. And I just thought this little elf hiding in the shade reading a book was a wonderful final image. So that's it for me, folks.
Oh,
Okay. Anything else? Questions, comments?
well, I just wanted to comment that I know that some of the parks nationwide are closed in the summer. In Nevada, especially outside of Las Vegas, they just you don't camp after May.
Right, but although I don't think they're closed. National parks almost never close. I
Well,
mean,
maybe
they
it's
didn't
state,
close during COVID,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, well, maybe it's state parks, but the thing is there is an attempt to regulate their use
Mhm.
during really intensely hot times.
Right, and there are parks, you know, like the Grand Canyon actually has, at the moment, you know, in the summer, they have people at the trailheads to check on people before they leave, to make sure before they head out on trail that they know what they're doing, that they have enough water, that they plan on being back in time to try to prevent things like the 2 people who died there this year. And same thing, you know, if you look at any of the parks, their Facebook pages, their Instagram accounts, um, their regular websites, they will have heat advisories up. They'll also put up smoke advisories if that's an issue now. They'll warn you as much as they can about this, and then, you know, people have to accept some of this responsibility themselves, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't. They, especially with COVID, so many more people are using the parks than did before. And even at Henry Cowell, you know, it's obviously it's nothing like the Pinnacles. But when people come, and I only work outside the visitor center now, but when I'm talking to people about trails and they want to do what's called on social media the highlights loop, which takes them up to the sandhills and back down to the observation deck, and I go through, well, this is what you're going to do. This is how long it's going to be. This is how much water you're going to need. I said, there should be water up at the observation deck unless the plumbing's broken again, which happens often. So you need to be prepared if you're going to do that hike. And if it's later in the day, I'd say, I'd leave that one for the morning. Why don't you do this hike this afternoon? Save that for when you can get it done early, not when you're going to be in the sandhills at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Okay. Tammy, back to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Good stuff, Joyce. Thank you very much. Really appreciate all of that.
That was great. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so let's transition, and we're going to have David tell us a little bit about what do we have to use if the power goes out, and if we don't have AC in our homes. What do we got? You're muted, David.
There we go. All right, so here is my presentation, my screen here. Let me just, yeah, there we go. Now, my name is David Dean. I am the Live Oak branch co-leader. My colleague David Sonnenberg and I have taken the lead there. I joke that it takes 2 of us to replace the woman that was previous the leader. And yeah, so I'm going to talk about temporary, portable, and emergency power options. What sorts of things do you need to know, and what are they? What can you do when you need power? So yeah, what do you need to know? The most important things here are that I'm going to try and cover are what the measurement units are and what they mean, so that if you want to go out and buy something, you'll at least be able to make an informed decision, be able to weigh some more of the pros and cons and the pluses and minuses, the cost benefits. And I also want to talk about the typical uses and show a few examples, suggestions, recommendations, so that you can have a basis of comparison. So these are the things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to kind of work my way from small and cheap up to large and more greater needs and great, much more expensive solutions. But yeah, I'm going to talk about portable charging packs, which are very common items and easy to find and small and cheap. Jump starters, which are very similar, but they have additional uses and are very handy to have. Inverters, which are devices that let you use battery power to operate items that require alternating current, which is what's typically used in the household. I'm going to have a brief mention of what they call uninterruptible power supplies, and some people refer to them as line conditioners. Then I'm going to talk about these power stations, then generators, and finally solar panels, which everyone seems to be excited about. So yeah, these small battery packs are almost commodities these days. Everyone has them. You can find them in all sorts of sizes, shapes to meet your needs. A variety of different kinds of plug-ins, and I'll show some examples of that. These are typically sold with a measurement called milliamp hours. This is a basic unit of how much power the battery is capable of storing. This is a pretty good unit to use if you're working with a fixed voltage. So the way these started out is it was mostly USB, which people would use to charge their phones, and it's very standard. It's 5 volts. It's so most of them all have at least that USB-A port, and so that's why milliamp hours was very common to use as the measurements. Now, if you do have a newer phone or different types of electronics that aren't using the USB standard, and you can buy these little power packs with USB-C, which is a newer standard for a lot of cell phones and for a lot of other accessories. You can even buy some chargers for your ham radios that have the USB-C now.
David?
Yes?
Sorry, do you have slides that are going with what you're seeing?
You're not able to see that?
I see just the one that says temporary, portable, and emergency power options.
Oh, it says sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to the front. I guess it won't let me play the thing. So can you see it now?
I can. I see portable charging packs.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to go back to maybe slide 2 for a moment.
Okay, so this is
okay.
where I started out.
Yep.
And then here's where I talked about the things that I'm going to try and cover.
Okay.
And what kinds of devices I'm going to talk about.
Okay. Thank you.
And here are the examples of the portable charging packs, and you can get really tiny ones that are great, that hold about as much as your phone does, so that if you're out and about somewhere and your phone is dying or dead, you can get it back up pretty easily with one of these if you've got it all charged up and ready for you. And they're easy to sneak into a glove compartment or your purse or jacket pocket or anything. And they do come in a variety of sizes and shapes, but you know, this is pretty much the typical size and shape. The things you want to know about these are: how do you charge it? What kind of cord do you need to charge it? And what kind of things can you charge with it? And so that these are referred to as the ports of the object. So in this example, you can see that there are three different kinds of ports on it. So I've got 2 of the typical USB ports, and I've got a USB-C port on it, and what is called a micro USB port. And so most of these will charge with the micro USB port. You can buy an adapter that'll plug into the wall, or will have a regular USB end that you can plug into a computer to charge them up. But this one also has this newer technology called USB-C, and I can charge it with that as well. One of the advantages of USB-C is, instead of having that fixed 5-volt voltage that you use to charge it, USB-C can talk and use a higher amount of voltage. So you can typically get these up to 20 volts, these kind. Although there are chargers that will go, the full gamut up to hundreds of watts. But typically for something this size, 20 watts is as high as you go. And so, yeah, these are great to have around the house. They make great gifts. They're very inexpensive. And they come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, ports, and it's something that you should consider having several of them, either around the house, some in the car, somewhere that you're going to be able to have it, so that if you are stuck somewhere, your car is dead, or you were dropped off with somebody and some emergency happens and you're stuck out somewhere, your phone is going to die. Well, you've got some way of getting your phone charged back up. And that's great for a very short emergency situation of, say 8 hours or something.
David, I have a question.
Yes.
If I have a couple of those and I love them and they've saved my life several times, but my question is, do they, when you're not using them, do they decharge at all?
Typically, the newer technology does not. The lithium batteries are much better than the older types of batteries that they have, and so anything you buy these days will keep its charge. It may lose a percentage or two over time, but it will do a very good job of keeping it up. But again, it's a good idea to check them periodically. If you're changing the batteries for your smoke alarm, well, check your other batteries too.
Yeah, I was tending to leave them plugged in what seemed to be maybe an unnecessary amount of time. So I've wondered if they recharge, if they just, lost their power at some point in time. And
so again, a lot of the newer ones are also set up so that you can't really overcharge them. So that if you leave them plugged in all the time, they aren't going to eat away at the battery like some other older technologies did. But for the most part, yeah, you charge it up and you can just stick it somewhere for 6 months, and it's perfectly fine. And, whenever you're going along, 6 months later, you check it to see where it's at. It's probably going to be in the high 90s of a percentage charge. So, and yeah, some of them will have these percentage markers, and some of them just have a few dots to tell you how much charge they have left. But you'll typically find that they're pretty full, even after quite months long of storage.
David, are there any particular brands or models that you would recommend? I scraped together enough cash for one of these about 1.5 years ago in anticipation of PSPS, and it turned out to be a piece of junk. It wouldn't hold a charge. It was constantly beeping at me to plug it back into the wall, and of course I couldn't return it right by that point.
Yeah, that is one of the downsides of these becoming a bit of a commodity, is that everybody makes them. You get them, free as swag sometimes if you go to conferences and things, and And if you look on Amazon, there's hundreds of brands to choose from. And so, yeah, you can save a little bit of money, but you may not get as high a quality. And so there are a few different well-respected brands. One of them here is this Anker, A-N-K-E-R, that is pretty well respected and well liked. This one here that I have is a RAV Power, which is R-A-V-P-O-W-E-R. Another pretty well respected brand. And that little tiny one here is actually a local company in Gilroy called Zenger, Z-E-N-D-U-R-E. And I had one of my CERT team members doesn't like to buy things from Amazon or, and so she was really excited to find out that there is a local company that makes this sort of thing.
And do you know where it can be bought locally as opposed to having to fight with the internet?
I can send you some links.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. So the next type of item I'd like to talk about here is the jump starters. Now, basically, these are these little portable power packs plus. They have a little bit bigger batteries, but they also have a bit of electronics in them that allows you to push out enough current to jumpstart a car, which is something that has turned out to be very convenient and very useful. I'm, I used to always keep jumper cables in my car because, I would be the guy that would stop when somebody was stuck alongside the road. I'd pull over, see what they need. And a lot of times people would need jump starts, or I'd be at a gas station and somebody would be like, hey, do you have jumper cables? And so now I can pull out one of these things and say, hey, I can do it with this. And they're like, you're kidding me. But no, it's really fantastic. And yeah, they come in a few different types and they have all sorts of different features. But the main thing about them is you can plug these two little terminals, these two little clamps onto the battery. It will tell you if you've hooked them up backwards or not. There are lights on the little thing, and you plug it into the battery, and then you can go straight to the ignition, start it up, boom. And people are just always amazed when I do that for them. And with the pandemic, my wife's car had sat and sat and sat. And she wanted to go to the store one day, and oh, the battery was dead. And I said, oh, you know that little jump starter thing I have? Why don't you try that? And so, yeah, that saved her bacon, because her battery for her car was really in bad shape and had been drained too much to really get her anywhere. And so she kept that in the car, and that would get her to the store and home until I was able to get a battery replacement for her. And so I really do recommend that everybody get one of these.
And that's actually when that happened to my truck camper too. The truck had sat there forever, and the battery decided to give up the ghost. And when AAA showed up, they had one of these. That's how they started my car.
And so,
of course, then they put in a new battery too. But
so yes, these are measured in a couple of different units. The milliamp hours, just like the other battery packs, but they also talk about amps, and that's how much juice you can suck out of the battery at a time. And that's important because if you have a bigger truck or a much bigger battery, then you're going to want a bit more oomph in one of these. But for the typical car, you don't really need to worry about is it enough amps, because they've designed these to do much better than is necessary for a typical sedan. But yeah, if you've got a big vehicle with a big battery, then you will want to pay attention to how many amps is available, so that you can be sure and be able to start your vehicle. And it did surprise me how many times I could use it without recharging it. I think the book that came with it said you could do it maybe 3 times, but I've been able to do like 5 and 6 times between charges, which is pretty amazing. All right, the next item on the list here are inverters. Now, these also come in a large variety of sizes and shapes. The one over here is one that's designed for using on an airplane to keep your laptop running on an airplane. I used to have one of these, but nowadays my battery lasts longer than the airplane rides. Of course, I haven't been taking any airplane rides for a couple of years now either. So. And yeah, you can get them. These come typically are rated in what is called watts, and that is how much energy is drawn out of it at a time. So, for example, a hairdryer is something that sucks a lot of electricity out at a time. That might be 1200 watts. And so if you buy one of these inverters that like this one that's 175 watts, it's not going to run a hairdryer. It's not going to run a refrigerator. You know, the refrigerator might be somewhere between 300 and 600 watts. So if you want to pick an inverter that is right for the job that you're giving to it. And like, for example, a ham radio is typically only about 100 watts or less. And so these are things that you want to consider when you are picking one of these out. But yeah, most of them will plug right into your cigarette lighter in your car and will run just about any small electrical device you need, as long as it's not something like a hairdryer or a refrigerator or a soldering iron, something like that, that uses a lot of heat. And for example, this one will hook up directly to a battery. You see the clamps here. And that way, if you are in fact drawing a lot of energy out of the battery, you won't have to worry about overloading your cigarette lighter with it, because it can't. The cigarette lighter, the wiring to the cigarette lighter is only so thick, and if you hook directly to the battery with these, you've got nice thicker cables that can handle drawing a lot more energy. So these are things to consider if you want to use this. And this is a great solution for, say, you're out somewhere with your car and you have plenty of gas, or some way of keeping it charged if you have an electric car. This can run devices for you for quite a long time. And of course, the more wattage the devices you're trying to power, the quicker it will drain your battery. So that is something else to keep in mind. Joyce, you got a question?
Yeah, so I took my laptop with me on our last camping trip, because along with a DVD drive, because we were going to watch the movies at night in the campground. And I had, it looks like the CyberPower one. I'm not sure the wattage. It's out in the camper at the moment. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it works fine charging our phones and our iPads. But when I plugged my laptop in it, it would connect and disconnect. So it was going beep, 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 beep. Mm-hmm. And why might it have done that?
Well, if you had it plugged into your cigarette lighter, mm-hmm. and your car wasn't running, then it's just gonna be able to pull so much juice because of the size of the wiring and the size of the battery. So yeah, you can buy an inverter that is stronger than your battery, So it is something you want to make sure you can test and try out before you go camping in the middle of nowhere and try and use it and find out that, oh, whoops.
Didn't quite work. Yeah, we have solar panels and we have 2 batteries in the camper, but it didn't seem happy.
And in a typical car, when you hit a situation like that, you start the car, and the electronics of the car actually do manage to help keep the voltage up high enough to prevent that as well. So if you're in an emergency situation and that were to happen, then that's probably your best bet, is to actually get the engine running.
Or watch the movie during the day when the solar panels are working, right?
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, let's move on to uninterruptible power supplies or line conditioners. So what these basically are giant batteries that hook up to your home's electrical system, and then they can provide power if the electricity goes out. So the olden days use case for these was people's computer desktops, because back in the day, power was a little flaky, and if you were working on something and you hadn't saved it and the power goes out, you lose everything. Well, so that's why they designed a lot of these originally, is so that you could keep your computer running if the power dipped, and then you could not lose your work. Another reason that people use these is to make sure that their power output is clean in the way that it's very consistent. So the output is always the same voltage, always the same speed and cycles, because alternating current is typically designed in the US to do what they call 60 hertz, which is it goes back and forth 60 times per second. And so some people's homes are too far away from the power stations, or there's any variety of things that might go wrong between them and their power station. And so they don't necessarily have what they call this clean power that is consistent and solid and reliable. And so that could, if you're just running a light bulb, it's not a big deal if it gets dim and bright and dim and bright, or things like that. But if you have sensitive electronics, well, that matters. Now, in the more recent times, people have learned that, hey, these are actually really smart things to have for other uses as well, such as keeping the refrigerator on if the power goes out for a day. But so these are kind of like the precursors to the Tesla Powerwall, or things of that nature that get hooked up to your to the power grid to charge them up, whether it be solar or the actual PG&E line, and then fills up this great big battery that can then run your appliances for a short period of time, depending on the size of the battery or how many things you have hooked up to it, in order to keep things going in emergencies. And so, yeah, I do know some people that use these for all three of those scenarios, keeping their computers on, or maybe their internet on if the power goes out, or trying to make sure that their sensitive electronics are not disturbed by bad power, or for trying to keep things running in the event of a short duration power loss. And apart from the PSPSs, I think the longest power outage I've seen in recent years is maybe 10 or 15 minutes, which is not bad for something like this. But yeah, we should probably plan for bigger and longer than that. But these are good for situations where you have, say, durable medical equipment like a CPAP machine that needs to run all night, and your power goes off and on in the middle of the night. Liz, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a comment.
Mhm.
Up in the valley, we have far more electrical outages, I think,
Mhm.
and they tend to be of longer duration.
Mhm.
And part of that is trees down, storms,
Yeah.
and things like that. So just thought I'd add that as true for up here. So
And yeah, I have family in West Virginia that lose power like that quite a lot as well. So yeah, you probably would be inclined to a larger, more expensive system, and maybe something like solar for those types of situations, because
So these UPS actually have a big battery in them that charges, and it's strong enough to run, you said, a refrigerator or a CPAP machine for?
yeah. A CPAP machine, it could probably run all night, a full 8 hours if you were but a refrigerator, you'd have to get one of the very large batteries for one of those, and it would probably only be for a few hours, if and yeah, these are typically talked about in a variety of measurements. Watts is important, just like with the inverters, because if you want to try and run a refrigerator, you want to make sure you have something that can handle that much draw. But they also talk about volt amps, which is basically another way of representing of how much time you can get at how much voltage. The larger numbers, the better, and indicate a larger battery. One of the downsides of these is they're quite heavy. Another downside is that they typically use the older battery technology, like the lead acid batteries, which do boil over, which if they can have those corrosive chemicals in them. So you have to be careful where you store them and things of that nature. And they are very expensive to replace the batteries. But they tend to be pretty reliable as far as it's going to work when I need it. Any other questions on the UPSs before I move on?
Yeah, one.
This is one of my favorite topics, and I actually own several of these. These are what they call power stations, and some places actually
David, Allison had a question though.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Allison.
Yeah, I've had not a very good history with the UPS line conditioners. Number one, I've yet to find one that doesn't play an annoying alarm every 5 seconds when the power is out.
Yeah, there are a lot of them that excuse me. There are a lot of them that don't have very much in the way of options or programming, and that will be very annoying. And so that's something you want to look into. Like, for example, this one here is very basic, and it's going to beep at you all the time when the power's off. But if you get one more like this one, then you
the-
get a lot the ability to program it and set it up to say, oh, I push the button to make it stop beeping. I know the power is going to be out for a while, or you can set it up to say never beep, and just trust that it does its job, or only beep when it hits 25% power. So these are features you can get with them, but again, it tends to be on the larger ones and the more expensive ones. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So yeah, these power stations, they're also referred to by a lot of people as solar generators or battery generators. I don't like that term because of the fact that they don't actually generate electricity. They just have big batteries in them that stores a lot of electricity. And so, yeah, they come in a variety of sizes and with a variety of different kinds of ports. You can power very different things with them, and but they typically will come with the USB ports, just like the small battery packs. But they also typically will come with a cigarette lighter adapter type outlet and electrical outlets. So they have a built-in inverter, basically. And they are a little bit heavier than your typical little battery pack, but they're quite a bit bigger and they hold quite a bit more. These tend to be measured in what they call watt hours. And that's because milliamp hours is a specific voltage measurement. And so watt hours kind of gives them the flexibility of saying, you use something that draws more power, it's going to not hold as much, you know. And so it's it's a slightly more accurate value for a variable type of usage. Because yeah, the AC outlets here are going to draw a fair bit more than the USB outlets or the 12 volt DC outlet. But the 12 volt DC outlet is going to draw more than the 5 volt USB outlet. And then there are other ones too that have different kinds of DC connectors, the plug-ins, kind of similar to like your laptop's power things. So you can get cables that plug directly into the devices like laptops and things. And some of them tend to be more designed for home use, like this one here. It's got the 4 big grounded outlets, and it's got a gigantic battery, and it's rated at like 2,000 watt hours. So you could run a refrigerator on this thing for 6 to 8 hours. And one like this is typically designed also to be able to be hooked up to another one and another one and another one. So as your needs grow or your bank account grows, you can afford to buy more of them and put them together and have them working together to give you longer power. And one of the main advantages of these is they tend to be a bit lighter than, say, the UPSs or just big batteries tend to be, because they use the newer technology and they have adapted over time. So the one that I just showed you is actually holds less than this one, which is a newer model and is smaller and a fair bit lighter. And so these are great for camping, and the things that I like to do is I do a lot of rough camping where we just take our tents and you know, go out in the middle of nowhere somewhere, you know, a state park, and tell the ranger, you know, this is where we're planning to go. We don't know, you know, we're not going to have one of the prescribed, you know, pre-set up campsites. We're going to set up a campsite of our own. So this is where we'll be, but the general vicinity of where we're going to be if we get lost, but we camp out. And so it's typically, yeah, there's no power, there's no cell. And I do use a CPAP. So I can get a few nights out of most of these types of power stations. And they're great for things like radios and things of that nature if you want to entertain yourself out in the woods.
A question, David.
Uh-huh.
You said these don't generate, they just store, so they're basically a great big battery, right?
Yeah.
And you can just plug them into the wall in your house before you go camping.
Yeah, you can plug them in the wall in your house before you can camping, and most of them these days actually have a connector so that you can hook up a solar panel to them.
Great, thanks.
But it's the solar panel that is doing the generation, not the not the device itself here. But yeah, the ones that have these USB-C ports tend to be able to be charged via USB-C as well, rather than directly plugging them into the wall, which can be convenient as well. Like you can use, that means you can use your laptop charger to charge it instead of having to bring its charger, you know, so you can pack a few some fewer things. I also like to go on train trips, cross-country train trips. And so these are great for me for that as well, because if I'm, you know, in the middle of the night in Salt Lake City and they're changing the crew or changing the engines or things, and they turn off the power, I don't get woken up because my CPAP stops working. I've got the battery power doing the job for it. And so I can sleep right through whatever they're doing. And yeah, these are great for most of your typical household appliances. If you're going to be in a power outage situation for a couple of days, you can meet most of your emergency needs with something like this. And I've also used these to power my ham radios for different things. I ran my net control station with one of these one evening, and I only used about 10% of the battery for, over the course of an hour. So that was something that was really nice for me, because of the fact that one of the things I like to do with the ham radio is try and be available in emergency situations. And so having power in a portable form is great for that. Any questions on these?
Yeah, David, I have a question.
Bill?
You briefly alluded to the solar panel ways of recharging. Mm-hmm. And there's two important constituents for doing that kind of recharging. First of all, if you're going out into the wilderness and you're trying to, for example, power a refrigerator, but more important is the PSPS situation that we're dealing with here in the Valley. Mm-hmm. Do you have much experience or any recommendations for solar panel recharging of these kinds of units? Are you going to talk about that more later, or?
Yeah, I have a section about the solar panels specifically coming up in a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And was it, thought I saw a hand, was it Glenn? No, I guess I don't see anybody's hand. So next is actual generators. These are powered with your typical fossil fuels, and you can get them for a variety of different fuel types. There's gasoline, there's diesel, there's propane, there's actually just natural gas as well, and you can get them big and small, and you can get ones that will hook up to your PG&E gas line that will run your whole house in the event of there being no electricity, but there being
You
gas.
assume we have PG&E gas.
Well, but that's just one example. You can actually get them with propane as well, for propane. In fact, I own one of these ones here on the right hand side, the ALP ones. It's a very small one, and it's only rated at I think 1200 watts, but that's enough for running my freezer in my garage, so that my food won't spoil if there is a prolonged power outage. And because it can be hooked up to the same propane tanks as I use for my gas grill, I can hook it up to one of those, go get the other one, walk down to the 76 and around the corner and get it filled up. And that way I can constantly be able to have power available for that. And it is convenient if you know of a place that actually fills your propane tanks, or if you've got one of those propane tanks for your home, for the heat in your home, you can run a generator off of those as well. And it's the important thing to know, though, about these generators is that, yeah, you want to put them outside. You don't want to try and run them inside your house. They produce carbon monoxide that can be very deadly. So you're going to have it outside, and they're a little loud. So they may annoy your neighbors. So you may not want to have them running all night long if you can help it. But some of them are quieter than others. And in fact, they're depending on where you live. If you're out in the valley somewhere where your closest neighbor is, hundreds of yards away, rather than someone like me who my nearest neighbor is a couple of yards away, you may be able to get away with a loud generator. But yeah, these can be purchased that have very large tanks, that have very high wattage capacities, so that you can run, if not your whole house, the very most important big appliances. And yeah, I would recommend not trying to do things like run your oven off of it, because that is quite a lot of energy. But hopefully you can cook things with your grill or something else of that nature, so that isn't going to need the electricity. But yeah, most people are familiar with with what these are, how they work, and they can range in cost depending on how powerful of one you want to purchase. Any questions about generators? All right, now solar panels. This is the topic that I've just recently been learning a bit about, because it was such a big field. I wasn't sure where to start, where to get going. But this is the basics. a complete system like the tends to have your solar panels, something that is able to regulate your charge and your power, so that if your batteries are in fact full, it's not going to try and keep filling them up and ruin your batteries. And then your batteries are typically hooked up to an inverter, a very large one in cases of a home installation. And then that is hooked up to a breaker panel, a service box type thing that then will distribute the power to your various appliances, your power outlets and things. And often you'll use a generator as a backup or as a supplement to the solar panels if and when your batteries die. And that can also go into your inverter and power your appliances and loads directly, or it can also be used to charge the batteries. There are a variety of different types of solar panels, and this lists a few different types and talks about how some are more efficient than others, some have longer lifespans than others, what some of the advantages and disadvantages are. The main takeaway is that you need to do a little bit of research when you're looking at your solar panels, and need to know, you know, what kind of environments you're going to be using them in, what kind of a lifespan you're looking for, what kind of trade-offs you're willing to make when you're purchasing them, because you can get less expensive, low efficiency, short lifespan batteries that are very flexible and very light, but they might not last very long, and they might not give you quite the oomph that a more expensive, heavier, more durable panel will get you. So these are things that you need to take into consideration, because it can affect your cost value equation. So there are quite a variety, as I said before. Typically, when you purchase different things like those power stations, they have an associated solar panel with them. That makes it really easy for you to pick the right one, or pick one that you know will work with your system. That tends to work out reasonably well, but yeah, it might not be great for the needs you want it. So maybe you want something that's going to just keep things running, you know, just occasionally need the panels to recharge them. So yeah, you want something that's light, flexible, folds away, portable, but then it may take longer to charge your batteries. Some of them are very flexible, in that you can purchase a system that has a solar panel and a controller, and then a variety of different connectors, so that it will hook up to anything, but then that might be overkill for you. It might be too many things, too many choices, too confusing. They also sell very small solar panels for that just have a USB connector. So this is an example of one that I bought. And what I do, I have these security cameras that are Wi-Fi, and they have, you know, batteries that'll last 3 months or so between charges. But this has a USB connector on that you can plug directly into the camera, and then during the day, while there's light out, it'll top off the battery for me for my camera. And so then I don't have to worry about going up and climbing a ladder and taking care of it and getting it charged back up. So you can find very nice, small, niche items like that. But if you want to go for a system, then you're going to have to find out about what the panels are, what the wattage is for those panels. And that's important because the wattage of the panels tells you how fast and how completely you can charge your batteries in a given amount of time. And so if you're going to be running your whole house on nothing but solar, well, then you have to have big batteries that will store enough energy in them so that when the sun is not out, you've got plenty of juice in your batteries for all the things you need during your during the non-daylight hours. And in order to fill those great big batteries, you need to make sure that there is enough power being brought in from your panels to fill those batteries. So if you've got, 12,000 watt hour batteries, but you've got a 200 watt panel, it's going to take you a lot longer than a day to charge those batteries. So you'll need to do the math and worry about the efficiency and worry about whether you have enough capacity for the full system in order to do things. And so this is where it tends to get expensive, because when you talk about batteries and big batteries, you get very expensive. And when you need to have a lot of watts in your solar panels, well, then you need to get efficient solar panels. You need to get ones that are going to be durable, and you're probably going to need a lot of them if you're going to need hundreds and hundreds of watts in order to fill your batteries. So yeah, you can get small things like this one that'll do one device real well for maybe $30, $40, or you can buy a panel that goes along with your battery pack or your power station. That's going to be maybe a couple $100. Or maybe you get something like this that includes a controller system and all the equipment to hook it up to various types of systems, and then you're starting to talk $1,000. Or you get a complete system that's many, many panels and many, many batteries and a controller system and an inverter, and you're talking several $1,000. So that solar panels are very exciting, but they tend to be very expensive. So there is definitely a lot to learn about them and a lot to figure out about what your needs are before you start delving into purchasing them. However, it's a great thing to have, great thing to be prepared for, and hopefully you can get to the point where you could live on basically off the grid if the grid goes down. But again, it will get expensive the bigger you go. All right, any more questions? I think that's it for the topics I wanted to cover.
I have a question, David, regarding your experience with solar panels. I had a very small one, and I was going to try to just recharge a small 12-volt battery with it. But even when I was camping in a place where there was full sun, it seemed like it took a lot longer to get the battery up to and I realized that maybe actually I had to keep turning the solar panel to be pointed at the sun more effectively. Like I was a little disappointed that I couldn't just sort of lay it out there and come back 8 hours later and all my problems would be solved. What can you comment about that?
Yeah, so that's one of the important things is to have a controller that will not overcharge your battery. And then if you don't want to constantly be re-aiming your solar panel so that it gets the most direct sunlight, then you are going to want to have a panel that is overrated for your use. So yeah, you're going to get some loss because they're not, 100% efficient at converting sunlight into electricity, but you're also going to get some loss because it is very much a factor as to whether you're well aligned with the solar fields. Now they do make some solar panels that are better than others at because they build in these kind of fancy lenses. They're called Fresnel, so they're a little bit better at directing the off-angle sunlight into the panels directly, but those become a bit more expensive, and they still are not, going to get you quite as much as you would as if it were, in fact, a direct beam. And yeah, I'm still fairly new to the solar panel stuff. I had this in my presentation that I gave to the CERT Auxiliary, but mostly as I'm still learning. I'm just trying to figure this out myself. So yeah, I'm a beginner with solar at this stage.
Then what would be just a totally different use case, but do you think it's realistic to have a solar panel that could charge up your electric car? I know it was a very big question, broad and dimensions, but
I will
do people do that?
They do. They're actually, unfortunately, one of them has disappeared that I knew was locally. One was at Natural Bridges State Park, and one is down at the wildlife reserve behind Elkhorn Slough. And the one at Natural Bridges, it's great. You could park 2 cars, and the solar panel actually would follow the sun. Unfortunately, somebody broke into it and stole the batteries. The state parks don't have the money, to replace it. The one down at Elkhorn Slough is still there. It's not anything I think any of us could afford to buy at this point and stick in our driveways.
Yeah.
But I must say, when I go down there and I go birding and I plug in my leaf and it's like, yes, the sun is charging my car, and it makes me feel really good when I do that.
The ones I've seen in person, I haven't seen the ones that Joyce was talking about, but the ones I've seen are much bigger than the car too. They're bigger than even what I would consider a carport. So I think we do need to get a little bit in the ways of more efficient solar panels before it gets to the point where you can really fully charge your car and your car alone on your property with a solar panel.
Well, unless the solar panels are on your roof. I mean, if you have a set on your roof, I have a number of neighbors who, although they're still hooked in with PG&E at this point, but basically their panels are running their house as well as their electric car. So. But
yeah, then you have panels the size of your house, and you're probably charging a battery that helps with your house.
I have a funny story about charging my car. We recently got a whole house generator, and the first time the power went off, it went off at 11 o'clock at night, and I had my car scheduled to start charging at 12:30 like it does every night, and totally unintentionally, that generator came on and charged my car fully. Now, I get that that's not the best for climate change. I think the ideal system would be some solar panels, a generator, and some batteries that all work together, and then you just charged your car the regular way you would charge it. But most of that would be coming, hopefully, from the solar. At some point, maybe stored in the other batteries temporarily, and then into your car.
Yeah, I think most people that have a grid intertied solar setup would try and charge their cars, not actually off of the solar cells directly, but they'd still be connected to the grid. But at that moment in time during the day, they would be generating at least as much as they're putting into the car. So it just means that they're not giving all that energy to PG&E. I'm sorry, Beryl, you were about to say something when I interrupted you, I think.
Oh, I was back to the power packs. Is there something to be able to store those packs in the car? I'm worried about more of the heat, so like it getting too hot for having a battery in there or any electronic device.
Typically, modern batteries are fine at the temperatures in your car that your car might get to, if you're not actually using the battery or not trying to charge or discharge it. So if you're just storing it in your car, it's relatively safe and not a worry. But if it's been in your car all day and then you want to use it, well, and it's pretty hot, you may want to let it cool before you start to use it.
Thank you.
Conversely, what's your thought about low overnight temperatures of storing something in your car?
Low overnight temperatures are actually not bad for these kind of batteries.
Around here.
Around here, especially, but maybe in Alaska or places like that where it's like -40, that might be an issue. But yeah, even freezing temperatures, 15, 20 degrees Fahrenheit shouldn't be a problem for storage.
David, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to a lot of campgrounds, I know they're not primitive, but you do see more and more solar panels in front of these big campers and motorhomes. And
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've said you're new to this field, but I'm wondering what they're expecting to get out of that. Are they expecting to run their whole piece of equipment, or are there things that are specifically made for motorhomes and travelers in those conditions?
So yeah, typically with a motorhome situation, you've already got some sort of inverter that is available to convert like a generator or the car's batteries, and they tend to have they tend to add batteries to the RVs. And so yeah, you can use the solar panel to assist in charging those batteries and make it a bit better so that you don't have to run a generator for as long, or at times when it would be quite rude to run, like 2 in the morning, things of that nature. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have anyone else who's got some questions for David?
I've got a quick one for Joyce before we lose
Joyce.
her.
Sure.
Joyce, when you first logged on, you flashed a book. I did not get the title as I was still trying to get set up for the meeting because I zoomed in here. What's it? I'm getting a reflection.
It's Knowles Wilderness Medicine. You can probably get it through Amazon, or you can go to the Knowles website and order it from them. It's the textbook they use for their class. And
Okay. I don't have a copy, but one I'd like to recommend to anybody who may be interested in that sort of thing is For When There Is No Doctor, is really good for when you're a long ways from potential medical care and you may have to make do for a while. So I'd like to throw that out there. And thank you for the title, Joyce.
you are welcome.
Very good. Well, this has been a really great and informative evening, and thank you all very much for that information. Yeah, so David's now posting some information to the chat about some of the products, the smaller battery packs, Zendure, Anchor, us.anchor.com. Zendure, you said that was a company in Gilroy, is that right?
Yeah, that's
David?
the company that's in Gilroy.
That's cool.
So yeah, these are the three of the most reputable companies for those commodity battery packs, and they also make the larger power stations as well. And yeah, there are even more good brands for these. It's just these are the three that are like the top of my list. But yeah, trying to think of some of the other ones, like there's one that's very similar to Anchor. It's like I'm just not thinking of it. and it's not in my browser history either.
Bill mentioned Jackery, Jackery.
Yeah, that's one that I'm familiar with. Yeah, I've heard good things about. It was Aukey, Aukey, is the other one that a lot of people seem to like, but it's lower on my list.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think at this point we will wrap up the evening. And thanks again to our guests for coming and for everyone else to be here and sharing this. Thanks very much. And we'll be seeing y'all at next month's general meeting. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.